And were there, when you were growing up, I mean, it sounds like that women played a huge part in keeping alive the heritage, teaching. Were there women who stood out in your mind, thinking back in your youth, who really were maybe great storytellers,
Yes.
or people who...
Yes. One of the major women in my matriarchal lineage would be Roberta Wright. She married Oscar Rim, and we lived in what you call northern Florida out there, Live Oak, up in northern Florida.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so Roberta Rim, which is her married name, her maiden name is Wright, kept these stories passed down to my grandmother, which was Mary Magdalene Heath Wright. And then she, from that point, passed it on to my mother. And what happened was it was just a matriarchal situation. But these are the women that were important to us. We called, most people call them Big Mama.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But the matriarchs kept and hold the stories to our people.
Okay. And in counterpart to the stories, were there other cultural practices that you were taught, maybe in terms of medicinal practices,
Oh, yes.
Remedies?
Yes. We kept herbs, and there was, contrary to what, society has modernized so fast and so quickly that we tend to forget that it was not that long ago that we were depending solely on herbs, solely on certain plants like the aloe plant, certain mints and leaves and things of that nature. So the herbal side of things it was second to none to us. It was just a continued practice that we as children never thought anything second about it. You know what I mean? It becomes second nature to most people now who depend on pharmacies. But for us, it was hand over foot. We didn't get any medication. I don't take medication to this day because we weren't taking aspirin and things like that. There was always a remedy to something, even when it comes to like gout, the certain trees get rid of gout and things that were just passed down by the women that knew, who were considered the medicine or doctors in our family, or midwives or nurses. A lot of my matriarchs in my family had those titles, RNs, and I couldn't figure out how they got it because they never went to school for it. But they had a profound sense of herbal remedy and how to take care of you, what herbs to use, what foods to even feed us during a time to help us out with stomach aches and things of that nature. I think someone taken away from their identity or culture can't identify these practices as being tribal until they're actually told where the source of this information is coming from. So I do know as well that most of modern day medicines use tribal remedies and herbs now because the tribal people were in tune with what plant life was used to fix certain ailments, as they would say. So
they're trying to patent all of those things now, right?
Exactly. That's not the native way to us. Like, how do you patent something that the mother gives to you, to take care of? You can't create the earth created us. Exactly. So we just find it fascinating. But yes, you're right, exact.
Chief Seco, how did people keep the community together? Were there celebrations or certain? Because it's very hard. I mean, in the larger society, which places very little emphasis on culture, and everything is the future this, future that. I mean, what were some of the ways that adults, as you were growing up, kind of tried to keep a sense of community, a sense of identity, kind of whole?
Well, customarily, what they call powwows for us are in American language called family reunions. So we would have family reunions 2 to 3 times a year, depending on when the season changed. It was customary for us that when someone or elder got sick, that we would all meet on our land. We have family land that was hundreds of acres that we would all go out. We didn't have to worry about police department or anything of that nature. We were able to freely run where our family was and where it was buried at. But for us, they were considered family reunions. They were nothing more than that for us, and we got a chance to be able to speak our language and talk and be free without having to worry about the stress and pressure of society living away from our family land. But that's mostly how we did it, outside of emergency situations. There was emergency family things, and family would travel from all of the United States to meet with Big Mama, the matriarch, when she called us. So that's how we normally did things, though.
How was language taught? I mean, language is very hard for a lot of Native American groups because, again, there may not be everyday opportunities to speak language. But how did you learn the language, and how has it been passed down?
From a baby, certain words outside of the American language, the English language, just used as like little pet peeves or nicknames or ways to identify certain things. It wasn't done because I realize now from what my mother has told me and her mother told her that, you know, there was a fear of us speaking our language because it would identify us with a certain group, and I didn't get that. But the way language was taught to us is by identifying objects and things with non-English names. And, you know, as a child, you don't identify, okay, well, I'm being taught something foreign or something customary. It was just normal for us. So it wasn't something that we identify as most people were like, well, I'm learning my Native American language, or I'm learning how to speak this language. It was just natural. It was never something forced upon us or looked at in a forceful way, or that, you know, we had to learn it culturally. It was just given to us, and we accept it, and we speak it to our family members now and to our children.
So as part of everyday life, there wasn't any like a schoolhouse or anything necessarily.
That's correct. It was definitely a part of everyday life, because what was told to us was like education outside of my great grandmother was really unheard of. Like, a lot of the men could not read or write the English language, but what I found out was that they didn't want to learn or read or write the English language.
Okay.
It was only until after we became more civilized, or seeing opportunity for colleges and things like that, that it was necessary to do these things. But the men and the women necessarily did not want to actually learn the language unless they was forced to be able to sign deeds or get insurance and things of that nature that happened later on.
Sure. Was there a relationship? Did people talk about because of this very rich cultural legacy? Anytime a relationship between, say, indigenous culture and African culture? Did people talk about that when you were growing up?
Yes, we were able to identify like who were actually, you know, from a plantation or considered Negro, as in the slave mentality, who might have came like when it came to Big Mama, our matriarch, Roberta Wright. She married a man who was considered, his family were a part of a plantation and were slaves. But then there were also the side of us that knew that we were full-blooded Native Americans, and you know, the dark-skinned people that you saw on this side that were obviously overwhelmingly dark, where that bloodline came from and how it came to be. But it was something that was accepted proudly. It was never something that was shunned upon if we had someone that was from the outside coming into the family, because the women took it upon themselves to choose whom they wanted to marry, you know. So they loved you, and you had something to present, and you came in traditionally, which is the way it was, and willing to move onto her land, which is what happened in our case, that the man came to live with us or her. Then, you know, they was good with that, but it was never something that was looked at in a negative light.